Yes, indeed. We are back aboard with the newest edition of the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. I am the somewhat capable host, TJ Reeves. Hello to my co-host as well, Mike Gill. I am based in West Central Florida. Mike in the Atlantic City area. Mike, the afternoon host of the Sports Bash, the weekday afternoon sports show on the ESPN radio affiliate. Good to be back with you. Do we have anything dramatic to talk about, my Lord? With the hockey finish on Sunday night, it gets no more razor thin than a Game 7 regulation ending goal in the final 2 seconds that we're going to talk about that Kenny Albert did a great job of calling. Does it get any crazier than the Kentucky Derby and the finish to that race every year? We've got that. We've got NBA buzzer beater from Monday night in their playoffs. We had a lot of drama all weekend. Mike, good to be with you, my friend, and chop it up again. Talk some sports media.
As always, there was a lot happening. Watched the Derby, obviously saw the highlights of the hockey. You're in a hockey market now. I'm in Philly. That used to be a hockey market. No longer a hockey market. Tampa's a hockey market, although it looks like Sunrise is now usurping Tampa as the hockey market of Florida. But, a lot going on. These NBA playoffs now kicking into the second rounds, but we had some great endings. Look, back in the day, a first-round series was a gentleman's sweep or a sweep. These things are going 7 games now in the first round.
All right, so on this program, some great sports media takes on the coverage. We got a little ratings mixed in. A scary situation involving Mike Tirico of ESPN and an allergic reaction. We're going to talk about that. And a couple of other news items and even some fun television trivia with an anniversary today. As we do this on Tuesday, May the 6th is an anniversary day earlier this century. We'll explain later on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. Thank you for finding us. We're live on social media right now. Mike's YouTube page, Mike Gill Show YouTube page, also his Twitter at Mike Gill Show, my Twitter at Buck Sideline Guy. If you're hearing us after the fact on podcast, thank you. The show is on podcast on Apple, Spreaker, Spotify. So if you're watching us, go find us on podcast. You can take us with you. You'll get an automatic notification when there's a new show. You can take us with you in your AirPods, your earbuds, your Bluetooth. If you are only hearing us, come see what we look like. You'll see the video and audio highlights that we're playing on the show through Mike's YouTube page and through social media. With all of that done and finished up, shall we get into Mike, you and I love doing play-by-play. And whenever you get down to the dramatics of a last-second call, that's what it's all about. And you want to keep it together. You want to be composed. You want to be in the moment. But, man, when you're talking about a Game 7 elimination game in Winnipeg, Canada on Sunday night for the Winnipeg Jets, losing the whole game, losing down the stretch of the game to the St. Louis Blues, and they're able to tie the game in the final couple of seconds. Just as a quick comment before we play the clip, it gets no crazier and dramatic than that in terms of Winnipeg was about to be eliminated until they weren't.
Listen, I mean, this was, and by the way, Kenny Albert on the call, I thought he absolutely nailed it. I mean, we talked about Kenny Albert. He's getting the Ranger job. He'll be the full-time Ranger guy coming up. But I thought that this was about as good of a call as you're going to hear at the national level. It captured everything. We're going to play for you in just a second here, but I definitely think, if you're watching this game and you see the clock winding down, you are certainly, as a viewer, not expecting this to happen. And him as the play-by-player to keep his focus, know the time, because you're going to hear in the call here, he has the time, he has just a perfect, he encapsulated everything that you're looking for in this call here. I thought that he did an absolute tremendous job here.
And you got to keep up with names. You got an extra attacker. Who's this guy? Who's that guy? So we're about to play this from TNT, Turner Sports, and Bleacher Report's clip of the end of the game. This is Game 7. If Winnipeg does not score with the extra attacker, St. Louis wins the series 4-3. You know what's coming. You probably have seen this highlight, but we are dissecting it for sports media purposes. And this is, as Mike said, a clinic of how to stay composed, stay in the moment, and then when the moment happens, wow, here it is.
Ehlers found on it. Count to 3. Ehlers
And the video audience is seeing how he lays out. They're letting the pictures tell the story. It's not radio, it's TV. Just bedlam there, Mike, in that moment. And he got the right names of who those people were. And you heard him. It's almost like, to him, he couldn't believe it. Score, score. And then he's trying to figure out who is that tipped it in, and he got the name right. Masterclass on calling mayhem and madness at the end of that game. And eventually Winnipeg went on to win in double overtime in front of those home fans, keep their Stanley Cup hopes alive with that win. It's interesting that the previous closest last-second goal in a Game 7 came with just 6 seconds remaining. That was in a playoff series back in the earlier 2000s in a Game 7, and I believe it was Vancouver and Calgary. Vancouver tied the game, like you just heard, with 6 seconds left, but lost in the overtime. So nobody ever really remembers that drama. It means a little more for Winnipeg that they tied it and they eventually won it. But one more time, he was tremendous. Sean McDonough was tremendous on Saturday night on the call of the Dallas comeback in the final moments to beat Colorado in Game 7. We got a couple of huge hockey announcers that rose to the occasion. Another comment from you, Mike Gill, on all of that?
One of the things that I've mentioned before, you've done a lot of play-by-play. I've done plenty of play-by-play. Hockey is a sport that I've done very infrequently, and I know my limitations. I can't do hockey nowhere near. First off, anytime I've been offered a hockey job, I politely decline just because I know I could not be up to the standards of what the broadcast needs. You're doing basketball and you're looking at the shot clock. You're looking at the time. You're looking at 1.5 seconds to have your eye on the clock, the shot, and it go in, goal, under 2 seconds. He nailed that whole thing. It was really good. And, I know Kenny Albert, we talked about him a couple weeks ago with the Ranger job, but he is tremendous on hockey. You probably heard him, other people listening, do football and some other sports, but he is really good on hockey. And you mentioned Sean McDonough. I don't think he gets enough credit for his hockey either, because a lot of people look at McDonough, college football, as maybe his, I don't know, would you put him, when you think of McDonough, do you think college football first?
I think of him, now, I think of him more, though, as a baseball announcer, because that's where he cut his teeth. And remember, you go back 35 years ago, he was doing the World Series on CBS. But yes, college football, college basketball, and then Monday Night Football. But you talk about somebody, hockey is not easy. We keep saying this, and he aced that call. By the way, Turner TNT will have the Stanley Cup Finals when it's all said and done. So that'll be Kenny Albert, Eddie Olczyk, who I love, and Brian Boucher, who's very underrated. They're on the call for the Stanley Cup Finals when we get there because they're alternating with ESPN. So it's Turner's turn.
Brian Boucher, by the way, is the Flyers home announcer on NBC Philadelphia. So he started here, and then he, kind of got the national stuff. But yeah, he is really good. He's gotten
you and Phil talked to him on the Announcer Schedules podcast that he kind of stumbled into it, had to be talked into it. I'll tell you what I love, and give me a follow-up on this. He and Olczyk always have observations and seem to teach me something almost every time that I watch. Do you agree with that? I mean, they're pointing out things that to the novice fan are important, and Boucher and Olczyk in real time are saying, watch this, or here's why that happened, or here's why you do it this way. I love that, Mike Gill.
Which is what you're looking for from your color analyst. Tell me why. Why did this play happen? Why did it happen in this fashion? And he gives you a goaltender's perspective, so he can talk about the defenders in front of him. Keith Jones, who's now the president of the Flyers, by the way, went from color analyst to the broadcast booth to the president of the team. He was wildly popular as the analyst here, but when Boucher stepped in here, I felt like you learned a lot more from Boucher doing the call. He does a really good job. A lot of times on those national broadcasts, they have him between the benches there. He's that guy that stands between the benches and gets that on-ice kind of vantage point there. So, yeah, I think he's really good. And I think Boucher, we got him on the announcers podcast because he was doing radio for Sports USA. They do the Stanley Cup playoffs on radio, and he started doing that. He's now elevated to a higher level.
We might try to get one of those Sports USA announcers on coming up as well for the radio call of the Stanley Cup Final. So we talk some hockey here at the beginning. It will progress along. Let's move to the NBA. And Iron Eagle. Now, this is recent. This is Monday night. This is game one for the Denver Nuggets. Yeah, on Monday night as we do this live for the Denver Nuggets at Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City's the number 1 seed. And here again, we've got an announcer for Turner on TV, a little easier on TV than the radio with the ultra description, but he's got to keep track of missed free throw, who has the ball in this last second broken play, who gets the 3. And then there's an underrated part of this is what's going to happen on the inbound. And is somebody maybe going to chuck the ball in on a length of the court type shot? You got to keep up with all of this. And this is Monday night from Turner again with Iron Eagle on the call of Nuggets and Thunder, and then we'll give a little analysis. Here you go.
All right, here we go.
It rims out. Brown grabs it. 7 seconds left. Westbrook, 5 seconds. They're down by 1. Gordon got it! Aaron Gordon with a deep shot. Williams, three-quarter court. No good. The Nuggets steal game 1. That's a winner for Aaron Gordon, 121 to 119.
There you go. I mean,
nails.
It was right. I mean, it almost like you couldn't believe it. Like that was it. That was how the game ended, just like that. I mean, it was bang.
And nails for everything that he called there, because again, an underrated part of this while we talk sports media is they can still throw in a three-quarter court shot or a half-court shot, and he stayed right on who had the ball. Oklahoma City did not have a timeout, obviously, or they would have taken it, and in the NBA, you advance it to midcourt, and out of a timeout, you've got time to regroup. Iron Eagle had to call all of that in one continuous thing for about 10 seconds. And again, if you were teaching how to stay in the moment, not overstate, and then he rose to the occasion as Aaron Gordon did, making the three-pointer. I know that's not an elimination game. That's not to win the NBA Finals, but that shows you why he's one of the best there in calling that. And the NBA ratings for the playoffs continue, Mike, to go up here. I know Turner released earlier this morning that their Game 7 Rockets win over the Game 7 Warriors win over the Houston Rockets ended up averaging over 6.5 million people on Turner, which is the most watched Game 7 on cable going back to 2009. So the ratings have gotten a bump. They hope Golden State sticks around. As we do this on Tuesday, the Knicks have beaten the Celtics in Game 1 in Boston. We don't have the Monday night numbers, but the New York-Boston markets should have probably represented 4 or 5 million total nationally on Knicks Celtics. And the Knicks again came back from 20 points down to win that. But that's a really good sign that for Steph and the Warriors on a Sunday night, they garnered over 6.5 million people watching. And I'm sure for the closing fourth quarter, that audience probably grew 1 million, maybe more. For the conclusion of the game. That's a positive sign from where I sit. Mike Gill, your thought on that?
Yeah, I it's interesting because Golden State, they needed Golden State with the Lakers out because now you got Golden State. Ann Edwards said, I want to play against the Warriors. I want to knock them out. He said that a couple of years ago. Well, now you get that little thing because if it's Minnesota playing Houston, I don't know that resonates. Oklahoma City, Denver, you got a good Game 1. You got the upset there, so that could rise the viewership of that. Oklahoma City, a 1 seed, gets knocked out, so I think that helps that situation there. The Indy Cavs game, not a big fan base nationally on both sides, but you got Boston, New York last night, and you had a great game. You had a 20-point lead. The Knicks come back. I'm sure that starts to have people, hey, the Knicks are coming back. The Knicks are coming back. Goes to overtime. So I'm imagining when those numbers come out, that Boston Knicks number is going to be pretty good. So the NBA hit with a couple there, but having the Warriors in there, I think will help that Western Conference Finals or second round.
If I were to say to you that Steph Curry is 37 years old, would you have believed me? He's 37. He's been doing it for that long, and he's still running past early 20-year-olds, mid-20-year-olds, driving to the hoop as he did in that game. So you're right. The NBA is not going to send out a press release or make an announcement, but obviously the longer they can have the Warriors involved, and if they get New York or the Celtics in the finals, if that can happen, I mean, no disrespect to Indiana or Cleveland or Minnesota or Oklahoma City, but you want the bigger names In particular, if you can get the Celtics and the Knicks against the Warriors or something like that, that's what they would want.
Well, and just go to the WNBA. The Indiana Fever played the Brazilian national team. It averaged 1.3 million viewers. It peaked at 1.6. This is a preseason women's basketball game.
That was, by the way, a total blowout. No drama preseason game, and it still shows you the Caitlin Clark effect. They had such a demand for tickets for that exhibition game because they did it on her home college floor, Carver Hawkeye Arena in Des Moines, Iowa, for which she played at the University of Iowa. Look at that, a preseason game. It tells you the WNBA.
Well, it goes to your point, though, of you need the stars. I mean, and because Caitlin Clark is the biggest star possibly in all of basketball, men's, women's, and anywhere else, 1.3 million viewers watched a exhibition women's basketball game. They
couldn't get 500,000 people to watch playoff games a couple of years ago, legitimately. Seriously, did you see the clip real quick of the Brazilian coach? Caitlin Clark was mic'd up for the game, and the Brazilian coach called her over and said, "Thank you. You are great. We're watching in Brazil and everywhere else. They're watching. It's history-making stuff. It's incredible." And let's see what the WNBA looks like when the regular season begins. I did see a stat where they now have like over 30 different home games for the different teams and NBA markets that will be in the NBA arena. And a lot of them involve her and her Indiana Fever teammates being the visiting team. But for the Chicago Sky playing in the Bulls Arena, the United Center, for the Washington Mystics to be playing in the Capital One Arena, which is the downtown Washington, D.C. arena, etc. This is a much bigger deal if the Dallas Wings, who drafted Paige Beckers, are playing in the American Airlines Center where the Mavericks play. That's a much bigger deal, much bigger crowds, much bigger atmosphere. So stay tuned on the WNBA. Shall we move along on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast? Let's talk Kentucky Derby. Let me throw it to you. How engaged were you with the Kentucky Derby, the coverage, and the race? Go ahead.
All day. 2:30, 3 o'clock, I think I tuned in till about the race started at 7:07, I think was the time, which is later than normal. Had it on pretty much all day. And one of the things I said during the middle of this, it's about 5:30, so I've been watching for 2 hours. I said, you know how hard this show must be to produce?
Yes.
How many different personalities and interviews? Hey, we're going to send it over to Eddie. I mean, like, you're losing track of who's where, who you got, who you interviewing, what are you talking about? To produce that show has to be extremely difficult. I don't think people realize, like, you know, not to mention, you got interviewers riding horses, right? You're doing the interviews on a
technical craziness.
It is when you, like, we have a love of the genre, so the intricacies of these things that people just don't even think about or take for granted sometimes. I'm thinking to produce this show has to be extremely difficult. And by the way, Larry Colmus, who we had on the Announcer Schedules podcast, he nails it every time. That guy, I mean, absolutely the best in the game when it comes to calling the race.
Speaking of nails, he is on it, and I love the behind the scenes of how they show he has an assistant that's kind of next to him, a spotter to help him, especially in the mud, and it was dark. And you've got the jockey color-coded on a board by him where he's trying to identify it. And remember last year or 2 years ago, he had the photo finish where you couldn't tell who won. For a few moments, you couldn't tell who won. And this time it was Sovereignty that came from behind. I know we're going to talk about Mike Tirico here in a couple of moments because that was the other variable. But look at that NBC Sports now says over 21 million viewers were watching for the race. The average was over 16.5 million for all the coverage. And what they have found, Mike, is the later this bleeds into the 6 Eastern time, 6:30 Eastern time hour, it's later, obviously, in the Mountain Time Zone in the West. And they used to race to get off the air for local news, for the Saturday night programming on the network, whether it was on ABC or NBC, whatever it is. Now, this is the item, live sports. It's got 3 or 4 times the audience than what the primetime lineup's going to have on NBC on a Saturday night. That's an incredible number, over 21 million watching the end of that Kentucky Derby, Mike, just to follow up once more.
And over about 1 million people streamed it, I'm imagining, on Peacock. So you got another 1 million people who watch it on streaming. That's up 34%. So listen, it's a bucket list item for a lot of people. They want to go to the Derby. It's a place to be seen. It's celebrities. I mean, they're rolling in celebrities almost every single time. Not to mention, they used it now as a platform to make big announcements. Carmelo Anthony's there. He's going to be part of the NBC NBA coverage there. They had him on there. So you had Simone Biles. You had Olivia Dunn.
They tried to get it out of Simone Biles. Are you going to compete in LA in 2028, which is still 3 years away? And she wouldn't tell them. But they tried. But this is, they're smartly leveraging the other brands, the other sports, and incorporating it and making announcements. It's well done with that. Now, you mentioned the chaos of producing even an hour or two live like that, but when you're going on for 5 or 6 or 7 hours and suddenly a variable comes into play where Mike Tirico, the ultra famous host and play-by-play man for NBC for the last few years, you know him for many years with ESPN and ABC, Mike suddenly became sick. It was obvious there was something wrong with him and with his voice. Social media began to say, what's going on? And it turns out it was an allergic reaction. He has a nut allergy, a peanut allergy, or a nut allergy. And we're going to get more into that, and we'll let you hear from Mike Tirico himself about his own situation. But this became a scary situation behind the scenes. We'll elaborate on this a little more after you hear from Mike Tirico himself. So he left the broadcast with still probably, Mike, what would you say? There were a good 3 hours probably still left. You were watching more intently than me, and then I became aware, okay, he's not there. But there was probably still a good 3 hours, right, left in their pre-race coverage when he was not there.
Yeah, because I think the interview with just mentioned him, Carmelo Anthony. Ahmed Fareed was in there for about 3 hours. I think he was doing the interview with Carmelo, and that happened in like around 5, maybe 4:45. That was early in the broadcast. So yeah, I think it was over 3 hours or about 3 hours. I know
this. Ahmed Fareed, let me get his name right, did a fantastic job. He gave an interview where he said he was done with his portion of their pre-race coverage on USA Cable, on USA Network. He was done around 2:45 Eastern time, where he said, okay, I'm ready to be gone and be done. They found him about 3:30 Eastern time, wherever he was, green room. Maybe he was at the window betting on the 5th race or something on the day of Derby racing. But they came to him and said, Mike is not feeling well. We need you to come back and we need you to get ready. And then he actually gave in the interview a couple of comments that he saw Mike Tirico, and Mike said, I'm not feeling well. I may be able to be back. You're going to do great. They're going to set you up with everything you need. And Ahmed said, okay, then in my mindset, I'm paraphrasing here, he said, I now locked back in. I was now off the clock. Now I locked back in to host the pre-race coverage, and he did a great job. And then obviously Larry Colmus called the race, and then Ahmed Fareed and Randy Moss, not the NFL wide receiver, but the horse analyst and broadcaster, laid it off. So we're going to play now Mike Tirico with the Today Show on Monday morning. And this is Craig Melvin, Savannah Guthrie, and Carson Daly interviewing him. They had already scheduled an interview with him. He was at his home by this time on Monday, obviously. So you're going to hear Mike tell the story that we were just sharing with you and what happened to him and about the awareness of food allergies. So we're gonna get to this and play a couple of his comments. This was Monday on the Today Show. For the podcast audience that's only hearing us, we're showing the interview right now on the video show as they are with him. And Mike Tirico explains what happened Saturday at the Kentucky Derby with the food allergy. Here you go.
Mike, he's here right now. You look good, fresh as a daisy. What happened?
I feel fine, have my coffee, watching the show like I do every morning, and sadly, I've become part of the show here. I left my EpiPen in Craig's dressing room when I was there filling in for Craig a couple of weeks ago. So that's what really happened. No, in all seriousness, and it is serious, I've had a nut allergy my whole life, and I'm usually very, very careful. As a matter of fact, when I was in doing the show for a few days, one of the things I pointed out was if we have a cooking segment, I have a nut allergy, so I don't want to eat anything with nuts. And usually you go to a restaurant, you ask, I bring it up on a regular basis. And whatever I ended up eating during the day, usually you do that snack grazing that a lot of us in TV do, so you're not eating a big meal before you go on the air. I ate something that had a nut in it and had a nut allergy, causes your throat and your nose and all that stuff to kind of clog up and swell, and it affects your breathing a little bit. So wasn't feeling well, couldn't go on with the show. Took an EpiPen shot, got treated by EMTs, felt better as about 8, 9 o'clock came along, but it takes a while for it to get out of your system. And thank goodness Ahmed Fareed, who's great, was there and filled in more than ably, and the show went on without us.
Hey, Mike, a lot of folks may not realize that I guess May is National Allergy and Asthma Awareness Month. What do you want people to take away from Tirico's experience?
People, including me, I did not know until someone reached out via social media yesterday that May is National Food Allergy Awareness Month. And there are over 30 million Americans with food allergies. And you see it very prevalent in still adults and even more as you go by. I had it as a kid and people had no idea. They thought I was silly and making it up, but it's a real thing. My son has it. Lots of us know someone who has a food allergy. So read labels, and I do as often as possible to check. Sometimes it'll say made in a factory where nuts are present. You gotta be really careful about that stuff. There is possibility for cross-contamination. So not only ask questions, but if you're hosting people for dinners, let them know if there's anything made with nuts. Restaurants are great about it now, folks. So ask, inquire, be curious, and be courteous to those who have nut allergies or other food allergies. There are many, obviously, around the country.
So there you go, Mike Tirico sharing that. Are you ready for me to share on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast? I am one of the 30 million that has a food allergy. I have developed, older in life, Mike, we all get older, I have developed an allergic reaction to shellfish. So my
mother's same thing.
So the very same thing. I have to be careful when we go to a restaurant, especially anything with seafood in it, to explain to them. Now, I will say this, I do not have what's called anaphylactic reaction, anaphylaxis, where your throat starts to close up, you feel like you're dying, you can really go into shock and almost die from it.
Now, my mom has the anaphylactic. She got it in her 30s, by the way.
Yes,
and one night came home and welts all over, throat swelled up, and hasn't eaten shellfish in probably 40 years.
You are identifying my story. The same thing. I used to eat shrimp, crawfish by the pound with no problem, and then you're suddenly allergic, and this is potentially a dangerous thing. I am not someone that has to carry an EpiPen, which is essentially an adrenaline-based antidote to whatever allergy you might have, and it's obviously very quick. And Mike explained they treated him with the EpiPen. I am told from somebody that's in the media and knows the story that was there at the Kentucky Derby, they took him to the urgent care center that's there at Churchill Downs. That's for everybody. It's for the fans. It's for those that are the workers, the jockeys, the trainers, the personnel, everybody. They took him to the urgent care. They checked him out thoroughly and made sure blood work and all of that he was good. And so there you go. They took care of Mike, and it just raises awareness for this. And I did not know that about your mother, and you did not know that about me. And I did not know that this was Food Allergy Awareness Month. It seems like we always have some kind of awareness of something every week and every month. You just have to be careful in these situations. So I thought I would share that. We only got a couple of minutes left here because I know you've got to run in a few moments. So we covered that with the Kentucky Derby. Glad Mike Tirico's okay. Glad he's bringing awareness to that. Anything else that you want to cover before I do the fun thing with the trivia and the series finale that has an anniversary date today? Anything else that's out there? What about this Justin Tucker? By the Baltimore Ravens, real quick. They sent the statement out. Tucker has been a lights-out kicker for the Super Bowl champion Ravens, but he began to struggle last year, and now there are repeated allegations of female masseuses, not unlike Deshaun Watson, saying that he behaved inappropriately. We don't have to get graphic with it. You can probably connect the dots with what was going on, and they believe that they were essentially sexually assaulted and sexually harassed by him. It's not just one or two women, it's numerous women, and a lot of people are bashing the Ravens for this statement that we're showing to the video audience on social media and on YouTube. Do you believe this is tone-deaf stuff by the Ravens from a media standpoint and a coverage standpoint, that they should have elaborated that it was more than just football?
1,000%. That's what you asked me about the Tucker stuff. I mean, not trying to get into the allegations. They are allegations, but for them to release him and then say it was because of the makeup of their roster, that's pretty weak sauce.
I think part of it is they understand potential liability because he was a member of their football team while this was going on. So by extension, they're on the hook for that. This is an organization that, remember, had the Ray Rice controversy. You dealt with that up in your part of the world where he had assaulted physically a woman in an elevator. I can't remember, was it wife or was it girlfriend?
I think it was his girlfriend. It was in an Atlantic City casino in the elevator.
Punched her in the elevator, and when the video came out, the Ravens obviously had no choice but to get rid of him and deal with this. So they've dealt with it before. Insensitive is part of what's being said. Tone deaf is part of what's being said. Is the criticism fair? One more time here of the Ravens' handling of this. They drafted a new kicker. It's not just football reasons. They're not even waiting for a kicking competition later in the year in the preseason, or as they're about to begin the regular season, right?
Yeah, so, this is and listen, I get it. The world we live in today, you've got to go to court. You've got to get it all, so you can't just say, he did this. You've got to wait, which makes it tough on the organizations to be able to say what maybe it makes them have to look like this because of the system.
There's over 10 women accusing him. Deshaun Watson got up.
I think it was 16. I think the number was 16.
So it's not just one or two isolated on this with the kicker. We're talking about the kicker of the Ravens. And what we're seeing is the quarterback contract with Deshaun Watson far outweighs the kicker importance in the kicker contract because Baltimore.
Well, and here's the thing. You wonder, he struggled last year. You wonder if he was still the Justin Tucker that was there was a while there that he was one of the best kickers of all time. And it was as recently up until the beginning of last year. It was only last year that he started to struggle. What if last year he was still – I would like to see what would have happened in that situation. It was convenient.
We know the truth. If he was lights out, they wouldn't have drafted a kicker. They would have tried to ride this out. But now he wasn't lights out. This comes to light. They draft a kicker, and it's like it lined up for them to do this in early May. And that's what they did. I know you've got to go in a moment. Were you a big fan of the television show Friends in the late 1990s and the early 2000s? It had a 10-year run. Did you ever –
I know the show. I was not a weekly.
On the Last Word on Sports Media podcast, the 6 characters played by the 6 actors. How many of them can you name? The character names from the
Monica,
show? Yes.
Joey.
Very good. There's 2. Keep going. What about Rachel, Monica's best friend?
Yeah, Rachel.
Played Phoebe.
I know who they are, but I don't know the names.
Matthew Perry was Chandler, and Matt LeBlanc was Joey.
Yes, Joey.
Joey. Was the last of the 6. So those were the friends set in New York City. They're friends. They're living as roommates and dating each other and the whole bit. 10-year run of the show. Immensely popular show. There it is. 52.5 million people watched the finale 21 years ago tonight. May the 6th, 2004. The 4th most watched finale ever behind MASH, Cheers, and Seinfeld. Cheers had over 80 million that watched. MASH, the final episode from CBS, had over 100 million watching. Different time in TV in the early 80s. Seinfeld had close to the 80 million that Cheers got.
Yeah, I was a Seinfeld guy more than a Friends guy. I mean, I know Friends. I've seen episodes, but I don't have the Friends retention.
Well, they have the reruns still running everywhere on TV. And you're right. The final line was they were going to go get coffee. And he said, sure, where? Because the show is over. So that's amazing that was 21 years ago. I didn't realize it had a 10-year run. I would have guessed like a 6 or 7-year run. 10-year run with over 230 episodes of Friends. And it ended tonight. And by the way, in the present day, they no longer can get 5 or 10 million people to watch, much less 50 million to watch.
I was going to say, is there you'll never see like that again, where there's a show on television that is going to captivate an audience of 50 million plus all at the same time. There might be shows that generate audience, but not all at the same time.
Absolutely. I know you got to go. We got to go as well. Again, follow or subscribe to the pod on Apple, Spreaker, Spotify. Come find the video. Mike Gill's YouTube page is where we've been. We've been on social media, his social media, Mike Gill Show, my social media, Buck Sideline Guy. That's another edition of the Last Word on Sports Media podcast as we chop it up with the NBA, the NHL playoffs, and much more. We're here talking sports media each and every week. Mike, have a great week. Thank you, my friend.
See you, everybody.
All right.